Leo Ramirez didn't usually stare at old men, but that tattoo stopped him cold. He'd just taken a bite of his burger, halfway through a long drive back from the base, when he noticed the man sitting at the counter. Broad shoulders, faded Army Rangers t-shirt, wrinkled knuckles wrapped around a glass of sweet tea. Looked like someone's grandpa, someone tough but tired. Nothing out of place, until Leo saw the ink. A dagger, a cracked skull, a ring of thorns. Clear as day, even though the skin around it had aged like weathered leather. Leo's hands froze around the glass of Coke. That wasn't just some military tattoo, it was the same exact symbol he'd seen once, buried in a classified briefing years ago, a file almost entirely blacked out. Just 2 words had stuck with him. Ghost Echo. No one ever talked about it. Not officially, not even over drinks. It was like a ghost story told in whispers. A mission that went wrong in a place no one could pronounce. The kind of op that ended careers or lives. But that tattoo meant someone had been there. Leo wiped his hands on his napkin and stood up, trying to act casual. He wasn't sure what he was about to say, or if he should say anything at all. The man still hadn't looked up. He was just sipping tea, slow and quiet, like he didn't have a care in the world, like he didn't know the weight he was carrying on that forearm. Leo took a step closer. "Excuse me, sir," he said, careful not to speak too loud. "That tattoo, I think I've seen it before." The old man didn't move, didn't blink, didn't answer. So Leo tried again, softer this time. "Were you ever with Ghost Echo?" The man's hand paused on his glass. That was all, just a pause. Then he set it down, gently but firm enough to make a dull thud on the counter. He let out a slow breath, not annoyed, not angry, just tired. Still no answer. Leo felt his heart beating harder than it should. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe he'd said too much. He was about to apologize when the man finally turned just a little and looked at him, eyes like ash, heavy, sharp, quiet. "You got a name, son?" the man asked. Leo nodded. "Ramirez, Leo Ramirez." The man's eyes narrowed just barely. "Ramirez," he repeated, almost to himself, like it unlocked something. "My grandfather's name was Dario Ramirez," Leo added, voice steadier now. "He used to tell me about a mission nobody believed. Said a man with that tattoo carried 17 men off a ridge in Laos. Said command left you all there to die." The old man turned fully now, faced Leo square. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "If your grandfather told you that, then come with me." He slid off the stool, joints cracking with age, and walked toward the back hallway of the diner, without looking back. Leo hesitated for just a second, then followed. The waitress behind the counter looked up as the door closed behind them. She raised an eyebrow, then said to no one in particular, "That old man's been quiet for 10 years, whoever that kid is. He just opened a door that's been locked shut." The back hallway smelled like coffee grounds and old wood. A narrow door opened to a small storage room, shelves of canned goods, boxes of paper cups, and a single metal chair in the corner. The old man stood in the doorway, holding it open without a word. Leo stepped inside, unsure what he was walking into. The door shut behind them with a soft click. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Walter McBride leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes on the floor. Leo waited, not wanting to push. There was something fragile in the air, like if he asked the wrong question, the whole thing might disappear. Finally, Walter spoke. "Your grandfather, he wasn't supposed to tell you any of that." His voice was calm, but not cold, more like a man stating a fact that carried weight. Leo nodded slowly. "He didn't tell much, just that he served as an interpreter. Said he owed his life to a man who never told anyone his name. Just said if I ever saw a skull and dagger, to remember it." Walter's jaw tensed. "Dario Ramirez," he said, finally lifting his eyes. "He was a good man, stronger than most soldiers I've known." Leo's chest tightened. He'd heard stories, sure, but to hear his grandfather's name spoken like that, from someone who was there, it meant more than he expected. "Ghost Echo," Leo said carefully. "That was real, wasn't it?" Walter gave a half smile, the kind that didn't quite reach the eyes. "Real enough that we weren't allowed to talk about it. Not to our families, not to the brass, not even to each other after we got out." He walked over to the metal chair and eased into it, like his bones had been carrying the weight of silence for far too long. "There were 8 of us. Dropped in with bad intel, no backup, and a radio that died before it ever worked. Command said we were ghost recon. Go in, stay invisible, get eyes on the ridge, and get out." He looked up. "We never got out." Leo stayed quiet, just listened. "I lost 3 men the first night. 2 more by the second. Dario. He wasn't even supposed to be there. Civilian, volunteer. But he stayed, carried wounded on his back while the jungle chewed us up. Walter rubbed his hands together. Not for warmth, but like he was scrubbing something off that wouldn't come clean. We held that hill for 72 hours. No ammo, no food, no air support, just mud, blood and prayers. Leo swallowed hard. My grandfather said you saved 17 lives. Walter exhaled slowly. I didn't save anyone, I just refused to leave them. A long silence settled between them. Then Leo pulled something from his back pocket. A photo. Old, worn, folded so many times it was nearly soft. He handed it over. That's him, Leo said. That's Dario. And that's me when I was 10. Walter looked at the picture for a long time. His fingers brushed the face of a younger Leo, then landed on the smiling Filipino man beside him. His voice broke just slightly when he spoke again. He made us promise that if we ever made it out, we'd never let the story die. Leo nodded. He kept that promise, even when nobody believed him, even when the VA called him a liar. Walter's eyes darkened. They called all of us that. He handed the photo back. Why are you here, son? He asked, more serious now. This isn't just curiosity. Leo took a breath. Because I've got something, he said. And I think you're the only man alive who knows what to do with it. Walter leaned forward. Leo reached for his duffel bag, unzipped it and pulled out a small wooden box. He placed it gently on the table between them. The room seemed to hold its breath. My grandfather's journals, Leo said softly. Names, coordinates, everything. Walter stared at it, and for the first time since Leo walked into that diner, he looked afraid. Walter didn't touch the box right away. He just stared at it. The wood was old but clean, polished maybe, but not fancy. The kind of box someone made by hand, for something that mattered more than money. Leo sat quietly across from him, eyes steady. He didn't say anything, didn't rush him, he just waited. After a long pause, Walter finally spoke. I never thought I'd see this again. His hand hovered over the lid, fingers trembling slightly, then slowly he lifted it open. Inside were papers, dozens of them, folded notes, yellowed pages, corners softened by time. Some were written in neat handwriting. Others were rushed, scribbled in the dark, ink smudged from sweat or rain or both. Walter reached in and picked up one. His eyes scanned the words. Then he exhaled, sharp and fast, like he'd been holding something in his chest for years. This is real. This is all of it. Leo leaned forward. He kept it quiet, even from my mum. He said, some truths had to wait for the right hands. Walter didn't answer. He was already flipping through the pages. Names, dates, supply logs, makeshift maps drawn in charcoal, notes about wounded men, last known positions, the weather, the silence on the radio, the days they thought no one would come. Then he stopped on one, just a short entry, written in all caps, underlined twice. He won't leave without them, even if it kills him. Walter didn't blink. That was about you, wasn't it? Leo asked quietly. Walter nodded once, slowly. I told him I'd carry the last man myself if I had to. His voice wasn't proud, it wasn't even strong, it was tired, like the memory itself had weight. He picked up another note. It had a sketch of the ridge. X's where each man had been hit, a list of call signs, and at the bottom a single line. Tell my grandson I believed in him before I even knew him. Walter closed his eyes. For a second he looked like he might break, but he didn't. He folded the paper carefully and placed it back in the box. Your grandfather, he didn't just keep records, he left a legacy. Leo swallowed hard. So what now? Walter sat back. He looked older all of a sudden. Not weaker, just fuller. Like a man who'd been living half a life was finally breathing again. Now we finish what he started. Leo looked at him. What do you mean? Walter tapped the top of the box with his finger. We're going to Washington. They didn't leave right away. Walter needed a minute, maybe a day, maybe more. He didn't say it out loud, but Leo could see it. The way he handled the box like it was a piece of his own body. Like it hurt to hold, but he couldn't let go. So they sat in silence for a while, in that small, dusty back room of Lou's diner. 2 men, one old, one younger, connected by someone who wasn't even there. Finally, Walter spoke. I've got an old truck. She rattles in second gear, but she'll get us there. Leo nodded. I've got leave time saved up. Walter gave a soft grunt, maybe a laugh, maybe just air. Good, might need more than a couple of days. They left early the next morning. The sky was still dark when Walter's rusted pickup rolled into the diner lot. Leo was already waiting out front, a duffel bag at his feet, coffee in one hand, box in the other. Walter didn't say much when Leo got in, just looked over and muttered, "Buckle up." The highway stretched long and empty ahead of them. Texas gave way to Louisiana, then Mississippi, then states that looked more like passing thoughts than places they meant to stay. They didn't play music. Didn't need to. The road itself had a hum that filled the silence just enough. Leo drove for a while so Walter could rest. But the old man didn't sleep. He just stared out the window, thumb brushing the edge of the wooden box resting between them on the seat. At one point Leo asked, "Why now, after all this time?" Walter didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because your grandfather trusted me with the story, and I let it die." Leo shook his head. "You survived, that's not nothing." Walter turned toward him. "You don't understand. We were promised recognition. Quiet, maybe, but something. Then the reports vanished, names scrubbed, they told us it never happened. So I stayed quiet, for years. I started to believe maybe it really didn't matter." He looked down at the box. "But this proves we weren't ghosts." Leo nodded. "Your name should have been in the history books," he said. Walter scoffed lightly. "History books are for heroes. We were just men doing what we were told." He paused. "But those 17, they deserve more." They stopped outside a gas station somewhere in Tennessee. Leo stepped inside to grab water and snacks. Walter stayed in the truck, fingers tracing the box again like it was a road map. A teenage boy walked past, did a double take at the tattoo on Walter's arm, then looked away quickly. Walter noticed. But he didn't cover it. Not this time. Later that night, in a small motel just off I-81, Leo stood outside smoking a cigarette he didn't really want. Walter opened the motel room door behind him. "We tell the truth tomorrow," he said simply. "And whatever happens, we tell it together." Leo nodded. "Yes, sir." And somewhere deep inside Walter's weathered chest, a knot that had been there for decades finally started to loosen. The Department of Veterans Affairs building looked like a place designed to forget people. Rows of windows, grey walls, carpet that didn't quite match the ceiling tiles. Everything smelled like old coffee and printer toner. Walter hated it before they even walked in. Leo held the door open. Walter stepped through with the wooden box clutched tight under his arm. He didn't wear his old uniform, didn't need to. His face carried more weight than medals ever could. The receptionist was polite but tired. Her badge said Angela. "Hi there, can I help you?" Leo spoke up. "We're here about a unit that was never recognised. Ghost Echo." Angela didn't flinch. She'd heard weirder things. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Walter said. Angela gave a tight smile and started typing. "Okay, I can probably get someone from Historical Claims to talk to you. Might be a wait." Walter just nodded, then took a seat. Leo sat beside him. The waiting room was full of quiet people. Some in wheelchairs, some in ball caps that said Vietnam Vet or Desert Storm. Some with eyes that had seen too much. Time passed. A full hour. Then a man in a cheap blue suit called out, "Mr. McBride?" Walter stood. The box was still in his lap. He didn't leave it behind. Leo stood too. "I'll come with you," he said. The man in the suit glanced at Leo's uniform and nodded. The office was small, a desk, 2 chairs, 1 American flag in the corner, dust on the base. "Name of the unit?" the man asked, already typing. "Ghost Echo," Walter said. The man paused. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. "I don't think..." Walter opened the box. The room fell still. He laid out a stack of papers, names, coordinates, eyewitness notes, Dario's handwriting, his maps, his words. The man blinked. "This is extensive," he said, "but there's no digital record of any of this. No mention of Ghost Echo in the system." "That's the point," Leo said, his voice steady. "It was redacted, scrubbed, buried." The man looked uncomfortable. "Without official orders or confirmation from defence," Walter cut in. "You think we made this up?" "No, sir, I just mean..." Walter leaned forward, not angry, just done. "I watched good men die. I carried their names in my head for 50 years. Now you're telling me they still don't exist?" The man shifted in his chair. Leo reached into his bag and pulled out a sealed folder, one Walter hadn't seen yet. "My grandfather submitted this in '92, Leo said. "Got a rejection letter. VA said the mission never happened, but they kept the paperwork." He slid it across the table. "So either you explain why the government sat on the truth for 3 decades, or you help us fix it." The room went quiet again. The man picked up the folder, read the top line. His face changed. "Dario Ramirez, I've heard that name before." Outside the building, Walter lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. Leo stood beside him, arms crossed, watching traffic crawl by on the street. Neither spoke. Then Walter said softly, "If they actually read what's in that box, we won't be ghosts anymore." Leo looked over at him. You never were, Walter. They just stopped looking. They weren't expecting anyone to call. Not that night, anyway. Walter had just stepped out of the motel bathroom, towel over his shoulder, when Leo's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Leo looked at the screen. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail. Then he answered. Hello? A pause. Then a woman's voice, calm, steady, older than Leo expected. Is this Leo Ramirez? He blinked. Yeah, who's this? My name's Margaret Wynne. I'm a researcher with the Department of Military Archives. I work out of the Cold Files Division. She paused like she was deciding how much to say. I think we need to talk about Ghost Echo. Leo sat up straighter. Walter looked over from the other bed. Ma'am, how did you get my number? I was forwarded a claim file this afternoon from someone at VA. Said there were 2 men in the office asking questions no one's dared bring up in 30 years. One of those men was named Walter McBride. Leo's chest tightened. That's right. Then I need to meet you both, tonight if possible. Margaret met them at a diner across from a gas station outside Arlington. It wasn't much. Cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lights, pie under glass. But she walked in like she'd been coming there every week for years. She was in her mid-50s, hair pulled back, glasses perched low on her nose. Carried a leather satchel over one shoulder that looked older than Leo. Walter gave her a long look as she sat down. You know about Ghost Echo? Margaret nodded once. My father was in it. Silence. Leo leaned forward. What was his name? Thomas Wynne. He was listed as MIA in 1971, but my mother, she always believed he was left behind. Walter looked like he'd been punched in the chest. I remember Thomas, he said quietly. He had a kid, talked about her all the time, said she had a laugh like bells. Margaret smiled, just barely. That was me. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a worn folder, not standard issue. Handmade, labelled in red pen, Echo Fragments. I've spent the last 15 years digging through archived field reports, old memos, forgotten paperwork. I found references to a recon op with no official name. I found supply requests that disappeared, helicopter logs that ended mid-sentence. She placed the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were copies of photos, notes, half-torn maps, even a dog tag. I didn't know what I was looking for until today, when your names came through. She looked at Walter. You're the last one alive, aren't you? Walter's jaw clenched, then he nodded. Yeah, and I've been trying to forget ever since. Margaret's voice softened. Don't, please don't, because I've been trying to remember. Back at the motel that night, Walter sat on the edge of the bed, box in his lap, folder open beside him. He ran his thumb across a grainy photo of 8 soldiers crouched in the mud, all of them young, sunburned, smiling in that way people smile when they don't know they're already ghosts. One face stood out. He tapped it. Thomas Wynne, he whispered. Leo watched him from the doorway. They're coming back, Walter, piece by piece. Walter didn't answer. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel like the last man standing. The next morning, they met Margaret again. This time in a quiet corner of the Public Archives building, 4 blocks from the Pentagon. She led them past rows of grey metal cabinets and locked drawers, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. I pulled something last night, she said. Been sitting in a classified backlog since 1973. Wasn't supposed to be reviewed for another 30 years. Walter raised an eyebrow. And they just let you take it? Margaret smirked. They don't know it's gone yet. Leo glanced around. Is that supposed to make us feel better? She didn't answer. They stopped at a small table near a window. Margaret laid down a single sheet of yellowed paper wrapped in a clear folder. It was a memorandum, dated April 16, 1971. At the top, in bold letters, Operation Ghost Echo Termination Order. Walter stared at it. Below the heading, a typed paragraph full of vague language. Extraction failure, loss within acceptable limits, operation considered non-viable. And at the bottom, a name. Leo leaned in, read it out loud. Caller Nathaniel K. Breyer. Walter sat back like he'd just been punched. Margaret nodded. He signed off on the shutdown. He declared your unit abandoned. Leo frowned. I don't recognise the name. Walter did. Breyer wasn't field, he was DC brass. We met him once, before we dropped. He said we were the kind of soldiers America would never admit using. He looked out the window for a moment, jaw tight. I thought he was just being dramatic. Turns out he meant every word. Margaret pulled out a second folder, thin, current. He's still alive, she said. Retired, living in Virginia, sits on 2 defense advisory boards, has a pension most officers would kill for. Leo folded his arms. He's still holding power. Walter's voice dropped. And he's still holding our names in the dark. They drove in silence for a while after that. Leo at the wheel, Walter beside him. The box, now heavier with truth, resting in the back seat. Walter finally spoke. "What do you think happens if we go to him?" Leo didn't look away from the road. "That depends on the kind of man he is." Walter let out a bitter laugh. "I already know." They found the house easily enough. Brick, 2 stories, nice lawn. Quiet street in an old neighbourhood outside Alexandria, American flag on the porch, bird feeder in the tree. Looked like a postcard. Leo parked across the street. "You want me to go in first?" he asked. Walter shook his head. "No, if anyone's asking questions, it's going to be me." He stepped out of the truck, slow but steady. His steps weren't what they used to be, but they were still his. Leo watched from the sidewalk as Walter walked up the path and rang the doorbell. After a long moment, the door opened. An old man stepped out, trim, upright, wearing a sweater vest and a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Walter stared at him. "Colonel Breyer," he said. The man blinked, hesitated, then said, "You shouldn't be here." Walter didn't flinch. "That's funny, I was just about to say the same thing." Colonel Breyer didn't invite him in. He didn't slam the door either. He just stood there, framed by sunlight and silence, with the look of a man who'd spent decades pretending this moment would never come. Walter stood calmly on the porch, not hostile, not polite, just solid. "You remember Laos?" he asked. Breyer didn't answer right away. "I remember a lot of things. Do you remember Ghost Echo?" A pause, then a quiet, measured response. "That's not a name we're supposed to use." Walter let out a short, humourless laugh. "Yeah, I know. I spent 50 years living without a name because of you." Breyer glanced past him, at the truck, at Leo waiting on the sidewalk. "Are you here for revenge, Sergeant?" Walter shook his head. "No, Colonel, I'm too old for revenge. I'm here for the truth." They sat on the back patio. Breyer made coffee. Walter didn't drink his. The birds chirped like nothing was wrong. The lawn was neatly trimmed. The world had kept spinning, even after it had left 17 men on a hill to die. Breyer spoke first. "It wasn't personal, it was policy." Walter nodded slowly. "I figured. You never came back for us because we were inconvenient." Breyer exhaled through his nose. No apology, just weariness. "You were off the grid. Mission parameters changed. Extraction was no longer viable. I had orders." Walter leaned forward, voice steady. "You didn't just cancel the mission. You erased it. You made sure no one ever spoke of it again, even the ones who lived." Breyer looked down at his coffee cup. Walter continued. "Dario Ramirez, Thomas Wynne, do those names mean anything to you?" Breyer nodded. "They were listed as non-recoverable." They weren't. They stayed. They fought. They bled for this country. Walter reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, one of Dario's notes. He placed it gently on the patio table. Breyer didn't reach for it. "Why now?" the old colonel asked. "Why dig all this up after so long?" Walter looked him straight in the eye. "Because you buried men who deserved to come home. Because their families got folded flags and silence. Because history called us ghosts, and you made sure we stayed that way." Breyer swallowed hard. "You think I wanted that?" "I don't care what you wanted." Walter stood slowly, his knees stiff but unshaking. "But I need you to say it. I need to hear you say it out loud." Breyer looked up at him, decades of denial cracking behind his eyes. Then softly, "We left you." Walter nodded. "Yeah, you did." Back in the truck, Leo said nothing at first, just started the engine. Walter stared out the window, jaw tight. "He said it," Walter whispered. Leo looked over. "What?" He finally said it. "We were left, and it wasn't a myth. It wasn't a rumour. It was real." He leaned his head back against the seat. For the first time since they left Texas, he looked lighter. Not happy, not healed, but seen. The call came on a Wednesday. Leo picked up, thinking it was another dead-end follow-up. But the voice on the line was Margaret, and this time she sounded different. They scheduled the hearing. Leo sat up straighter. "When?" "Next week, House Committee on Veterans Affairs. They're reviewing historical denial claims. We made the list." Walter was sitting by the motel window, sunlight spilling across his faded Army Rangers t-shirt. He wasn't listening yet, just staring out, watching birds move across the parking lot like they had nowhere in particular to be. Leo covered the receiver. "Walter," he said, "they want you to testify." Walter didn't move, didn't blink. Then softly, "They finally want to hear it?" Leo nodded. "Yeah, and this time you're not just some guy with a story. You've got the files, the names, the truth." The day of the hearing, the room wasn't large, but it felt like a mile long. Wood-panelled walls, flags, quiet footsteps, suits everywhere. Walter stood at the front, behind a simple microphone. Leo sat behind him. Margaret, too. The box rested on the table, open like an artifact someone had finally dusted off. A congresswoman adjusted her glasses. State your name for the record. Walter cleared his throat. Master Sergeant Walter Stone McBride, US Army retired. Thank you, Sergeant. You're here to speak about an operation called... She looked at her notes, unsure how to even say it. Ghost Echo? Walter nodded. Then he began. He didn't speak with drama. He didn't cry. He just told the truth. About the drop into Laos, the lost radio, the 3 days on the ridge, the men who didn't come home, the ones who did, only to live in silence. He spoke of Dario Ramirez, of Thomas Wynne, of the promise he made to 17 ghosts who weren't supposed to have names anymore. We were told to disappear, he said. But we didn't. We survived. And for 50 years, I've waited for someone to care. He paused, hands folded in front of him. You don't have to give me a medal. You don't even have to say you're sorry. Just put their names back on paper. Let them exist again. The room was quiet when he finished. No applause, just silence, heavy, respectful. Outside the building, Leo lit a cigarette for Walter, even though he never smoked himself. Walter took it without a word. They leaned on the same brick wall veterans had leaned on for generations, staring out at a city that had finally turned its head. Margaret stepped out a minute later. They're calling it a review in progress, she said. But the tone changed in there. You shook the floor. Walter nodded slowly. I didn't want to shake anything. I just wanted them to listen. Leo looked over. So, what happens next? Walter looked down at the cigarette in his hand, then flicked the ash away. Now we wait, but at least they can't pretend we were never there. The letter arrived on a Thursday. No fanfare, no flags, just a government envelope on the motel doorstep, tucked beneath a newspaper no one had asked for. Leo opened it first, standing by the sink with coffee brewing behind him. He read the first few lines, then handed it to Walter without saying a word. Walter took it, sat on the edge of the bed, his reading glasses slid low on his nose. He read it once, then again, then folded it gently and set it on the nightstand. They approved it, Leo asked. Walter nodded. They're adding Ghost Echo to the historical record, 17 names, full citations, service acknowledged, effective immediately. Leo smiled, not wide, just enough. Margaret showed up later that afternoon with a bottle of whiskey and tears she pretended not to have. They sat in the motel room, 3 people who didn't know each other 6 weeks ago, now bound by something heavier than blood. We did it, she said quietly. Walter shook his head. No, we just told the truth. Took 'em 50 years to listen. The next day they drove, out past the city, past the highways, through towns that didn't have chain stores or stoplights, all the way to a small cemetery tucked behind a Baptist church with peeling white paint. They didn't bring flowers, just the box, and the names. Walter knelt slowly in front of the headstone. Dario Ramirez. The grass was trimmed, the stone clean, but the silence felt like it had been waiting for him. He placed a folded piece of paper on the ground. Not in an envelope, no ceremony, just a simple note. Leo stood back, hands in his pockets. You okay? Walter nodded, eyes fixed on the stone. I told him I'd carry them home. Took longer than I thought. That night they stopped at Lou's Diner one last time. Same counter, same creaky fan, same radio humming old country songs. Walter sat at his usual stool. Only this time he didn't sit alone. Leo sat beside him, Margaret across. And for the first time in a long, long while, Walter didn't feel like a ghost. He felt seen, he felt remembered, and maybe, just maybe, he felt at peace. In the end, it was never about medals, not about revenge, and not about changing the past. It was about a promise, quietly carried for 50 years. A promise to the ones who never made it home, to a friend who never gave up, to a truth that refused to stay buried. Ghost Echo wasn't just a mission. It was a scar the world tried to forget, but a few good men never did. And when someone finally listened, they didn't ask for credit. They just wanted the names to be heard, and the silence to let them rest. Thank you for staying with this story, all the way to the very end. I'm truly grateful you were here. If it moved you in any way, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel so you won't miss the next story. Until then, take care, and I'll see you next time on Rain Inside.